I'm Chris Sims. I'm the Alberta Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. And I wanted to highlight something for all of our listeners and viewers. And I wanted them to ask themselves this question. Are you getting good value for the money you pay for government? Think of the services that you get from government. Are they top notch? Are they gold standard? Do you brag to your friends and family about them? I'm sorry for laughing, but the answer is obviously no. The Fraser Institute did great work the other day where they point out in their annual report that we are paying more in taxes than we are for food, clothing, and shelter and housing combined. We're paying more in taxes than we are for food, clothing, and shelter. That's from 3 various levels of government, so municipal, provincial, and federal. It's a disgusting waste of money. I'm going to zero in on the federal here, and I want to kick this off with pointing it out that Prime Minister Mark Carney is taking vacation again. This is an email that was sent out to the Parliamentary Press Gallery. Let's just read it together. To all Press Gallery members, while remaining in the National Capital Region and surrounding area, the Prime Minister will be on a reduced schedule in the week of August the 11th, that's today, to reflect a brief period of local vacation. As he does so, he will remain in close coordination with his team and officials on several economic and security priorities for the weeks ahead. Media advisories will be distributed should any public events arise during this time. Best PMO team. PMO stands for Prime Minister's Office, for folks who aren't huge political nerds. Now, granted, Prime Minister is a human being. Human beings, if you can, should try to take a vacation, especially when the weather is good, okay? We get that. But a couple of things. One, Prime Minister Mark Carney already did take a vacation earlier this summer. And two, this is where we get down to value for money and keeping promises and being accountable. Folks might remember that during the national election campaign, we were hearing all sorts of things like, oh, by Canada Day, I think it was, we're going to get rid of interprovincial trade barriers and problems. Okay, number one, anyone who's worked in government knows that that was a really silly promise to try to make, because actually most of the interprovincial trade barriers we have in Canada are with the provinces themselves. So we do have some issues with the feds getting their nose in there and screwing things up for interprovincial trade, but a lot of it is actually on the provincial governments themselves. So Carney shouldn't have made that promise. Also, if we take a look at what is happening south of the border and compare to what's happening up here, you got to start asking yourself if you're getting good value for money, because again, taxpayers pay a ton of money for the work of government. I wanted to pull up the schedule here. It's the calendar schedule for the sitting of the House of Commons. So these are all the members of Parliament, okay, where they all gather together in Ottawa, and this is when they are physically in session in the House of Commons, the big building, the big room with the green carpet, okay? So take a look here. Okay. 1 week tacked on at the end of May, and 3-ish weeks tacked on in June, and nothing until the end of August, okay? The House will resume sitting in the fall. But I want you to ask yourself, are you getting good value for money from those politicians, okay? We've got more than 300 members of Parliament. If you add up all of their base salaries, that's costing taxpayers more than $70 million. That's just the base MP salary, because they're all paid more than $200,000 a year. That's not including the cabinet ministers and the coin they make. That's not including the Prime Minister and the money he makes. So $70 million just in salaries for members of Parliament. And pull that calendar back up again so I can take a look at that. And they're sitting this many days? I don't know, man. That's not a really good return on investment. Now, to be very clear and fair, there are a couple of committees that are squeaking in some work here and there. So I do want to acknowledge that, because people do need to pay more attention to what's happening at committee. So I was hearing people talking about the BC Ferries deal they were making with China, etc. There were some MPs and some staff and clerks who were working in the summer for committee. That's good. The point here is, are you getting great value for money from your government? That's just the politicians. This might blow your mind. Take a look at the permanent government cost. The US President Donald Trump would call it the swamp. I would call it permanent government. And that's bureaucracies. So it's not just the MPs, of course, who are in the House of Commons or not. It's the bureaucrats who are working in all of these departments. They don't run for election. They don't need to put their name on a ballot. They're making, on average, okay, more than $120,000 per year each. The cost of the bureaucracy for taxpayers last year was more than 70 billion with a B. Yeah, easy to remember this, guys. The politicians, the MPs, they're costing you 70 million. The bureaucrats, 70 billion. So add 3 more zeros onto that tax bill. So this is an outrageous amount of money. We need to demand good value for money from our various levels of government. I wanted to point out also that we often hear things like, oh, we're in the middle of a tariff war, we're in the middle of a trade war with US President Donald Trump, etc., etc. As a taxpayer, I don't care about the personal, behavior between two people, if that's Mark Carney and Donald Trump. Work it out. Work it out. Because you have got millions of people counting on your departments to work out a trade deal. The fact that we have not been able to resolve the ongoing tariff dispute, and the responses is just increasing our tariffs on both sides of the border, that only hurts normal working people. Tariffs are simply trade taxes. That's all that is. It just winds up costing you more money. In practical situations, it can be everything from the extra charge now on Alberta energy, which is a huge issue, okay, to even simple little things at the grocery store. It's one of the reasons why you're not seeing pickles on the shelf coming from the United States. So people who are out grocery shopping can see the real effects of this happening. And then we've got entire industries that are holding their breath. People in the steel industry that are holding their breath, waiting to see what happens with their jobs. We've got a combination of tariffs coming from the United States and a looming, huge industrial carbon tax coming from Prime Minister Mark Carney. And yet we look across the border and we do more than $1 trillion worth of trade with the United States per year. I think we have a screenshot of this. It's from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. I would highly recommend going to their website. Look at this. This is the numbers. 1.3 trillion in annual two-way trade between Canada and the United States. For investment, we're going to be speaking about investment really soon here with Michael Campbell, more than 1.7 trillion. So 1.4 million American jobs are supported by exports to Canada. Okay, cannot overemphasize this importance enough. And what we're getting is kind of simple, dumb slogans online in the media between these two departments and no deal. Why are we seeing US President Donald Trump inking huge deals for their natural resources? They certainly found a market demand for their natural gas, right? He's signing these big deals, and he's also getting mega corporations to come to the United States and open up shop there. Why isn't this happening here in Canada? And the reason why it's important to focus on this is because if you don't have big companies coming in with confidence and doing business in your country, the government's just going to wrench money out of you, okay? They're going to increase your taxes even more. Because if you don't have good resource development and you don't have good business investment, they're going to find that money somewhere, okay? They're not going to try to cut their own costs. They're going to be bloodsuckers, and they're going to come after you. So why is it that we aren't able to find a huge export market for our natural gas yet? We are seeing some ships head out, which is good. But we're seeing the opposite happen. We're seeing great deals happen in the United States. This drills down to departments doing their job well or not. Doesn't have anything to do with the political jersey or the color of the jersey that the Prime Minister or his department's wearing. We pay people in the Department of Finance and Treasury and International Trade to deal with this. This is a them problem. This is not an us Canadians problem. They need to actually figure that out. I wanted to end on a couple of things here really quick, okay? Again, I want you to do a thought process and ask yourself if you're getting good value for money. We're working on our gas tax honesty report for this month, highlighting how many taxes you pay at the pump. And one of the really good things that I saw compared to last year is the consumer carbon tax is gone. And yes, it's actually been repealed now. It's technically gone. And so at the pump, largely in most places in Canada, it's 20 cents cheaper per liter than it was last summer. That's because the carbon tax is gone. I did some really frightening math a few weeks ago, and I added up how much the current government had taken from us in the carbon tax since it was first imposed back in 2019. It's more than $40 billion. $40 billion plus dollars. That's just the federal carbon tax. That's not including British Columbia or Quebec. Just to do a bit of quick math, $40 billion collected in the carbon tax because they said it was super duper important could buy around 800 water bomber planes. That might have been a smart investment, but instead we're $40 billion poorer, and they're not talking about it. What we do need to talk about is where Canada is headed, how we're going to start getting good value for money out of our government and kick the government into action and making sure that they are getting good investment in our country. How are we going to do that?